Have you ever wondered why, no matter how hard you try, you always seem to fall back into old patterns? Like, you decide to change, you make promises to yourself, but within days you're dragged right back into your old habits and routines. And it almost feels like the universe has its odds against you, and you just can't escape. And honestly, it's actually not your fault. You're not weak, you're not lazy, and you definitely aren't hopeless. See, the real issue is your environment. You probably don't realize it, but the people you spend time with, the media you consume, even the place you live, all these things quietly shape who you are, how you behave, and the person you become. See, your environment is silently influencing your every decision, reinforcing your old identity and keeping you stuck in a loop that makes real change nearly impossible. But here's the thing, once you're aware of this, everything changes. So in this module, you'll discover exactly how your environment shapes your reality, you'll learn how to identify the hidden influences holding you back, and most importantly, how to strategically redesign your surroundings so that success becomes inevitable. Just imagine a life where your friends, your home, and even your social media feed effortlessly push you towards your best self. Staying disciplined will feel natural and growth becomes authentic. There's no need to fight yourself every day and you'll no longer slip back into destructive habits. This is your genuine chance to create an environment that aligns with your goals, empowers your choices, and makes transformation easy. So let's dive right in.
Welcome to the Art of Influence. In this module, we're going to be talking about how to design your environment for success. Because this is one of the most crucial gears of change. Your environment. Most people overlook their environment and their surroundings, but it's actually their silent killer. Just like self-sabotage, it keeps you stagnant and stops you from change if you aren't aware of it. And the reason it's so dangerous is because it slips through everyone's radar. No one actually knows how much of a difference it actually makes. So in this module, I'm going to help you become aware of all the influences in your environment that are potentially holding you back and defeat them once and for all. So what I'm going to uncover today. So part 1, your best friend and your worst enemy. Part 2, types of influence. And part 3, how to switch. And then the resource, obviously. So, part 1, your best friend and your worst enemy. How you look, how you dress, how you talk, how you walk, how you carry yourself, your mannerisms, your beliefs, your vocabulary, your tastes and preferences, and your overall confidence, they are all subject to influence. As I've mentioned in the previous modules, you are a result of your programming. You're all born from the influence of your role models and people you highly respect. And this truth can either be your best friend or your worst enemy. So what we're going to do now is help you design your environment in a way that effortlessly influences you to change into your desired self. And just to really drill it in your brain that all these things are subject to influence, let me give you an example for each one. So how you look, right? As a teenager, you would go to school and see one of your friends get a haircut. And because of said haircut, that friend got with his crush. So after you watch all of this happen, this event influences you to get a haircut like his in hopes that you can also get with your crush. Then another example is these fitness influencers on social media. Knowing that their body is desired by women, you get influenced into hitting the gym and or exercising. And yeah, by the way, these are all just hypothetical examples to give you a better understanding. Then we have how you dress, right? As a kid, you see your dad, uncle, or brother dressing in a certain way, and you thought it was either the coolest outfit in the world or the lamest outfit in the world. And because of that, as you grew up, your clothing style will be heavily influenced by your role models, either by avoiding the lame outfit styles or incorporating or even copying the cool outfit styles. And another example is, as an adult, you would see people your age doing so much better than you in terms of money, and you start to notice how they dress. Clean and sleek while being well groomed. So hoping to be perceived of a higher status financially, you get influenced to buy or put on a nice wristwatch or a nice suit. How you talk. You spend most of your teenage years hanging out with your best friend. You guys hang out so often that you literally spend more time with him than your parents. Because of this, you subconsciously get influenced into start mirroring his way of speech, his accent, the way he pronounces certain words, etc. And if you've been watching your favorite YouTuber every week for years, you might be subconsciously influenced to say phrases from your favorite YouTuber in your daily speech. And then there's actually science behind this. It's an evolutionary trait tied to our need to belong to a tribe. The more we sound like someone, the more they feel like we're one of them. It's also rooted in mirror neurons, which activate when we observe others, allowing us to instinctively mimic behavior, including speech. Over time, this mirroring reinforces bonds and group identity, because people adapt their speech and behaviors to match those they interact with, and this is a phenomenon known as the chameleon effect, and that is the source. So this is, again, two examples and the science behind it. Then we have your vocabulary. If you spend too much time around that one friend who speaks in brain rot terms, it's going to result in you getting influenced to say, what the sigma, skibbity riz, TSPMO, all that stuff. And you might see your favorite actor use certain words that make him sound smarter, more attractive. So you copy that style of speech, hoping to sound smart and attractive just like him, or just like them. Then we have your beliefs. Now this, in my opinion, is the most important, because throughout this whole course, I've talked about how beliefs and paradigms come to be. They are simply a result of your experiences and influences, right? So if you really think about it, this whole course is just me trying to influence your beliefs and paradigms in a way that helps you change into your desired self effortlessly. So you might deny some of these and believe that this isn't true, and you're the type to not get easily influenced. But here's the thing, this all happens unconsciously. So even if you think you're not getting influenced, you actually are. Right? It's not like you're actively making these decisions to get influenced. So you may even deny these examples all you want, but the truth is everyone is subject to influence. Hence why it can be so dangerous, okay? The quicker you accept this, the quicker you will design your environment for success and change almost instantly. Now, there's obviously more ways you can get influenced, but I'm not going to give an example for every single type, because I'm sure you get the point by now. So let's just get to the juicy part. Part 2, the manifestations of influence. The manifestations of influence is the main core types of influence that drastically affect your day-to-day life, and these include media and content. So that's educational, psychological, environmental, social, and this is how it works, right? How it influences you. Every piece of information you consume will influence you in two ways, and I'm going to show you this in a Miro board. So here we are in the Miro board, and this is how information influences you. The first way is gradually through constant exposure over time. Example, hanging out with your best friend every day, resulting in you speaking his slang, right? The second way is almost instantly through impact, a role model or someone who has a very, very high level of influence over yourself. For example, you see your dad as your hero and the coolest person on earth, so you copy everything your dad does, hoping to be cool like him. Or let's say your favorite actor is Robert Downey Jr. and everything he does in his movies are so cool, it instantly influences you to start acting like him in your day-to-day life, right? But the thing is, influence is inherently neutral. It all depends on how you view the information you consume. So for example, a social media influencer promoting a minimalist lifestyle. Person A thinks this influence is positive, right? Because he's trying to influence people to promote a minimalist lifestyle or live a minimalist life. And person A thinks this is a positive influence. They feel less stress, save money, and gain clarity. They view the message as empowering and aligned with their values. But person B thinks this influence is negative. Maybe they grew up poor and finally have the means to afford nice things. To them, being told to live with less feels like shaming their success or pushing an ideal they associate with their past. So yes, these are basically the two different ways information influences you. And again, remember that influence is inherently neutral. It all depends on how you view the information itself. Back to the slides. So now I'm going to help you view all channels of influence in a way that is good in the context of changing into your desired self. Starting with media and content, which includes news and journalism, social media, movies and TV shows and music. And again, I'm going to explain the positives and negative influence of each manifestation, strictly in the context of change. And the point is, I want you to see things in the positive light, or I want you to change your paradigms or change your environment in a way where you're surrounded by the positive influence as opposed to the negative influence. So starting with news and journalism, whether it's politics, world events, or trends, it can shape your perception of reality if you hold a belief in it. And this is how it can influence you negatively. So trends and social movements. Extreme political ideologies or fear-driven narratives might result in you adopting a victim mentality, blaming the system instead of taking responsibility for change, right? Politics and world events. Constant exposure to negative news, wars, economic crashes, pandemics might make you feel powerless and stuck, leading to inaction and anxiety instead of focusing on self-growth. And this is how it can influence you positively in the exact same context, right? Since you can't actually control what the news publishes, the only thing you can control is the way you consume it, right? World events and crisis. Use all the negative world events to push you to change and improve faster, knowing that financial security, health, and personal skills are more important than ever. Then we have trends. If you study trends instead of just consuming them, you can capitalize on them by adopting it early. But note, influence doesn't apply to you if you don't respect or believe in the source of information. So if you don't believe what the news is saying is true, then it has no power over you and it's not going to influence you, okay? The only other exception is prolonged exposure. Even if you don't believe in the news, if you watch it every morning, 7 days a week, it will influence you, okay? Then we have social media. Now this is a big one. If you don't know, the algorithms are designed to feed you content that reinforces certain beliefs and behaviors. So it's like an extra brain designed specifically for confirmation bias. And if you don't know what confirmation bias means, it's essentially your brain reinforcing the narrative/belief you tell yourself regardless of its authenticity. So say for example, you're watching cat videos, okay? If you constantly like cat videos, the algorithm is going to keep on feeding you cat videos, right? And this can either be the best thing ever or the worst thing ever. Now, this is how it influences you negatively. Cheap content. If your algorithm feeds you with junk like brain rot, Kai Cenat stream clips, or unexpected football edits, not to shit on Kai Cenat, but just saying, Now, I'm not saying you should completely avoid it, but these videos do nothing for you. They don't help you or provide much substance to your life. All it does is keep you stagnant in a cycle of dopamine hits, right? So if you constantly interact with brain rot or like brain rot, like Kai Cenat stream clips or like these random edits, then that's all you're going to get whenever you open social media. And that's how it negatively influences you. So there's no point in watching these videos unless you want to self-sabotage, right? And that's the harsh truth. But here's the thing. We can actually use the algorithm to our advantage by helping it influence us positively. And that's by creating a designed algorithm. If you specifically design your algorithm with self-improvement content or motivational content, you are consuming value that directly influences your life in a positive way. But remember not to doom scroll because this also leads to stagnation. The goal here is to design your algorithm in a way where it gets you back on action. So, for example, the next time you slip up and check social media, you see posts telling you to take action, which leads you to closing the app and taking action. This will help you stay focused and make change easier. Next, we have movies, TV shows, and music. Now, believe it or not, these forms of entertainment can influence emotions, behavior, and even stuff like fashion trends, okay? And this is how it influences you negatively. Negative example. If you watch a sad, heartbreaking movie or constantly listen to sad music, you will eventually start to become a sad person in general. Knowing this, let me ask you this. Is your desired self a sad person? Obviously not, or probably not, right? So stop watching sad shit. Now let's talk about how it influences you positively. So a positive example would be watching my YouTube videos, right? Listening to music that your desired self would listen to as to accelerate this identity shift and help you change with ease. This is exactly why I told you to go in extreme detail in the realignment roadmap in the first course, okay? Now relax, chill. I'm not telling you to completely cut out movies, music, shows, social media, news. No. You can consume it all you want. Okay, I'm not your father, but just make sure it's aligned with the person you want to become. Does your desired self listen to jazz in the morning? If yes, then listen to jazz in the morning. And even if nothing you consume is aligned with your desired self, you don't have to completely cut it off either. Just consume it in moderation and be aware that it can influence you negatively. That awareness alone acts as a shield, and as long as you don't binge watch or doom scroll, you'll be just fine, okay? Everything is good in moderation. Go watch some brain rot every now and then. Balance is key. Next, we have educational. And this has two subcategories, books and articles, school and academic learning. So how do they influence you? Books and articles. Ideas from philosophy, self-improvement, business, or psychology can change how you think and act. So a negative example is it can negatively affect you if your ideas are out of alignment with your desired self. Say, for example, your current self doesn't believe in a purpose in life because a certain book said it doesn't exist. But because your desired self believes it does exist, then that'll become an extra belief that you need to change in the future, right? Now, a positive influence is you can accelerate your change by consuming books that help you change and align with your desired self. And you can even study and learn ideas that help you become your desired self faster and easier, okay? So are you starting to get the gist now? School and academic learning. This influences the way you're taught, which shapes your mindset on success, failure, and opportunities. A negative example is you're actually already at a disadvantage because school has indoctrinated you into thinking failure and risk is bad. But is it a coincidence that every successful person tells you to take risk and fail first before succeeding? You tell me. On top of that, we've already established that the fear of failure is holding you back from becoming your desired self, so this is a negative influence. Positive influence could be school isn't all bad because it teaches you how to socialize and develop your work ethic, which is also crucial for a successful life in general, as well as changing into your desired self. Holy fuck, I can't really speak right now. I don't know why. But anyways, so if you're still in school/college, do your homework, finish your tasks before the deadline, because in the real world, those things still prevail. Then third, we have psychological. This is a big one when it comes to change because it includes subconscious conditioning, confirmation biases. Okay, so starting with subconscious conditioning. Subconscious conditioning is the term for when the things you see, hear, or experience repeatedly shape your paradigms without you even realizing. And we've touched on this briefly with the first and fourth module and how experiences shape your reality due to paradigm shifts. So this idea shouldn't be new to you. Okay, so a negative example is, as you know, childhood trauma and life-changing negative experiences will manifest into undesirable personality traits, and sometimes these traits can stop you from changing into your desired self, and this is known as self-sabotage, okay? And a positive example is subconscious conditioning. In the positive sense would be this whole internal module in general. Because I'm basically rewiring all that is holding you back from becoming your desired self, so just by consuming and taking action on this course, it will influence you greatly. Then we have confirmation bias, your brain's way of naturally filtering out information that confirms what you already believe regardless of its authenticity. I've already mentioned this before, but it can influence you negatively if you keep searching for information that confirms beliefs that are holding you back. For example, I believe I'm a failure. Then you'll start remembering all the times you failed, reliving these experiences, further strengthening this belief with the feedback loop. Another example could have happened while consuming this course. You may have had moments where you disagree with the information I present, but this is also confirmation bias at work. The ego loves familiarity, so whether it consumes information that challenges it, it replays all the experiences you've ever had that reinforce the current belief that you hold. So we need to use this to our advantage because if we don't, it's going to be really, really hard for you to change. But I'm going to be saving this topic for the next and last module because it's too big. So fourth, environmental. Now we have your actual geological environment, which is where you live. And a city versus a rural area, a rich versus a poor neighborhood, all of them can influence your mindset and opportunities in different ways, right? And this is one of the main reasons why poor people get poorer and the rich get richer. But you don't need to worry about that because my mission is to help everyone change for success regardless of their background. So a negative example is if you live in a city where the nightlife is strong and the party culture is a social norm, then it's going to make self-discipline harder, which make it harder for you to change. And then if you live in a rural area, there are fewer networking opportunities, limited access to high-level mentors, and slow economic growth, which can make it harder for you to change. And if you live in a poor neighborhood, being surrounded by struggle and negativity can make you believe that escaping your environment is unrealistic or impossible, which means it's harder for you to change. If you live in a rich neighborhood, you may be so accustomed to having everything, which makes life more miserable because there's nothing worth working for. Now let's take the exact same locations, but the positive sides, right? In the city, you may be surrounded by high achievers, entrepreneurs, and like-minded people. Use it to your advantage, connect with them, and start thinking bigger and setting higher goals to make change easy and fast. So I hope you're starting to understand that influence itself is inherently neutral, right? It's all about how you choose to view it, right? You can either choose it to view it in a negative way or a positive way. And now I'm showing you how to view it in a positive way, okay? So if you live in a rural area, use it to your advantage by staying focused, build skills, and escape distractions to make change easy and fast. If you live in a poor neighborhood, use the fact of growing up in a tough environment to fuel your hunger for success. If anything, many self-made millionaires came from the struggle. And if you live in a rich neighborhood, seeing success firsthand at a young age can manifest paradigms that make changing for success easier and faster than the average Joe. These are the pros and cons to every location. The point is to focus on the pros and reduce as much of the cons as possible. And finally, we have social. And this is arguably the most important when it comes to influence because we as humans are social creatures. So if you only had control over one thing in your environment, let it be this one, okay? This includes friends and family, role models and mentors, social norms and culture. Friends and family. Their beliefs, behaviors, and expectations shape your habits, opinions, and even life choices. Why it's so crucial. See, the reason why they're able to influence you so much is because they're quite high in the influence hierarchy. While people in general have the highest level of influence over you compared to the other types of influence, your friends and family sit very high because this is who you spend most of your time with. See, I like to think that if you're being negatively influenced, it's like you're being held back by the weight of 4 elephants. 1 elephant for each member in your family. So, for example, you might be worried about what your friends think and they can stop you from taking action, like hesitating to start content creation because you're scared your friends will think it's cringe. Or your family might believe in playing it safe, avoiding risks, or staying in the traditional path and discourage your ambition. Some more negative examples is if everyone around you thinks success is rare or impossible, their doubt can make you question yourself. If a partner or close friend is insecure, they may sabotage your growth to keep you at their level. If you crave validation from your current circle, you may avoid making bold changes to avoid standing out, but this is more of a you problem. If everyone around you is doing okay, but not excelling, you might settle for mediocrity instead of striving for more. And if this is the case, you better get the fuck out. So, let's talk about role models and mentors. How they influence you. Watching successful people, let's say Elon Musk, Kobe Bryant, etc., can inspire you to adopt their mindset and work ethic. A real example of this would be Napoleon studying Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar to succeed, right? But if you watch people that contribute nothing to your goal of changing into your desired self, then what's the point, right? Because if you see someone as your role model, they rank the highest in the influence hierarchy, meaning everything they do has a strong impact in your life. You simply see them as your hero. So imagine if that role model treated you with disrespect or even abused you. Imagine how much it would affect you. The person you respected so highly, someone who you thought could do no harm, completely changes or even shows you their true colors. That is usually how trauma forms as a child. It's usually because parents are our role models. And guess what? Our parents also went through the same traumas. So it's usually going to get passed down to us, and that is the dangers of having the wrong role model, okay? Now let's talk about social norms and culture, right? Social norms and culture affect what you think is acceptable. So for example, Western and Eastern mindsets. Now, this can be very dangerous if the society and culture you live in doesn't support who you want to become, because that means the act of changing may not seem as normal, even though it's completely normal. But this can make you feel like a social outcast, which isn't helping our case very much. So how do we get a positive social influence? Well, there are only 2 ways, and it's going to be harsh. But to succeed in life, sacrifices needed to be made. You have to put yourself first and able to put others above you, okay? So the first way is to move. Move out of your family house, change your circle of friends, change role models, and move out of your current environment. Second is limit. If by any means you can't move, limit. Limit your time spent with bad influences. Try the 80-20 rule. Spend 80% of your time on good influences and 20% can be exposed to bad influences without causing that much harm. Although it's still not good, it's better than nothing, okay? Now, you're probably wondering, why does it work like this? Well, again, I've been mentioning the influence hierarchy, and this is the reason. It's all because of the influence hierarchy. And the higher the thing is, the higher the level of influence. Social, which is at the top of the triangle, psychological being second, environmental being third, educational being fourth, and media and content being fifth. So with the 80-20 rule, prioritize the high rankers. Whoever you choose to rank at the top of the hierarchy has to be a good influence, and that's a given, okay? If you have a bad influence at the top, that just might be the reason why you're stuck in a rut. Yes, it's that serious. It's like trying to win a MotoGP race with a moped with flat tires and no engine. That's exactly why I made a community, because I know how hard it is to find people that are not only on the same path as you are, but also match your vibe. So now, you shouldn't have any more excuses. Find your people and align yourself with them, or align your influences with them, okay? Now, I want to talk about something very, very important. You can take everything I've said in two ways. If you're more ego dominant, you're probably in denial. You don't believe this is true. You don't want to believe your sense of self is a result and conglomeration of your environment. But if you're more open-minded, you now know that it's genuinely easy to completely change yourself into someone that isn't recognizable in the best way possible if you just change your environment. So let me ask you, in the context of change, what is the best way to perceive information I've just shared? First way or the second? Obviously the latter, right? But it's not going to be that easy to convince the ego-dominant majority. So I have a few slides to help you become more open-minded. You may not accept it instantly, but just take in the information and let it marinate in your mind. Do your own unbiased thinking on it and come to a conclusion, okay? Escaping polarity, the unfair advantage. What I'm about to share will genuinely change your life and create multiple paradigm shifts that will equip you for success. So the choice is yours. Choose to be limited or choose to be non-binary. I'm not talking about non-binary in the LGBT way. I mean non-binary where you're not confined to a particular binary set of beliefs, okay? So no, choosing to be non-binary is actually a paradox in and of itself, because the opposite of thinking in non-binary terms is thinking in binary terms, which means you're choosing an opposite extreme. So to solve this paradox, choose to be non-binary on certain things, but not all. Okay, for instance, I believe in God and that will never change. I am actively choosing a side. But when it comes to believing in a right or wrong way to live life, I am non-binary, which enabled me to create this alignment philosophy. So keep this in mind. So right now it sounds like buzzwords like, oh, non-binary, polarity, paradox, blah, 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 blah. All gonna make sense in just a minute, okay? So here I have visualized what being non-binary looks like, and I'm sure you've heard the term be like water, and this is what Bruce Lee truly meant by being like water, okay? Because the human brain doesn't like complex stuff. And because everything in this world is complex, and the brain is constantly consuming information, it does something called cognitive bias to help the brain comprehend everything. So as a result, it creates two opposite poles of information just to simplify everything. And this is how we've been conditioned by our brain and society, right? So we have left wing and right wing. Weak and strong, small and big, rich and poor, hungry and full, light and heavy, right and wrong. But that's where most people limit themselves. They choose one side and cling to it. The ego attaches itself to the point where when someone challenges that side, the ego takes it as a personal attack, right? So let's take the example of the binary belief that there's a right and wrong, okay? An ego will attach itself to believing that they're right. So they'll think, no, I'm right, you're wrong, right? They think in binary terms. You're either right or you're wrong. Another example is big and small, okay? No, that's not big at all. It's small. That's big, you know? There's never an in-between. And this is exactly why you may not fully accept everything I've stated in this module and the past ones. That is the ego clinging to a belief. And this can be a bad thing because in life, there are no absolutes, okay? Some things are situational, some things are objective, some things are subjective. You can be full but hungry enough to eat dessert. So for example, let's take right and wrong again. You can be slightly wrong and mostly right, okay? So let's say this is the 50-50 mark where you're both right and wrong. You can be slightly wrong but mostly right. Something can be a little bigger than small. So it's objectively better to be non-binary because you open yourself up to the truth and you're not limited by the ego, okay? So the point is you should always stay neutral until a situation decides to set the context, okay? So for example, if you're naturally a serious person that loves philosophical conversations, but you're meeting up with a friend that never takes anything serious and loves joking around, you would have a much better time together if you could just uncling your ego from the label or belief that you're a serious philosophical person and just choose to become unserious. So before this situation where you're meeting with an unserious person that loves joking around, you should be neutral, okay? But the moment you hang around with this person, then you should choose to have a more joking personality, right? In order to enjoy and have a better experience overall, as opposed to, sticking to just one belief, which is just I'm a serious person and never changing ever. And that's the key. Don't just choose one side, It's too bad that society and our brains have made it seem like you have to choose one extreme over the other, but actually you can be both at the same time. And what's crazy is that the most successful people understood this. Take Muhammad Ali, for example. So if people were thinking in binary terms, a lightweight boxer had good speed but had bad power, right? A heavyweight boxer had had good power but bad speed. Yet Muhammad Ali had both power and speed because he realized he doesn't think in extremes. He can just be both at the same time. When you truly understand this, you unlock your true potential. You're no longer confined in the trap of polarity. The only reason I was able to change into a completely new person relatively fast is because I escaped the trap of polarity. And the only reason I'm able to combine both self-improvement and spirituality into one is because I wasn't confined by the laws of polarity. See, I looked at both sides from a third-person perspective and quickly realized everything is two sides of the same coin. So why conform yourself to only one side when you can have both? The only limiting factor is your brain or ego. Why would you choose between super strength and super speed when you can just have both? No one said you couldn't have both. That's just our brains limiting ourselves because it wants to keep things simple. Okay? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why you should be non-binary and be like water. So now it's time for the resource. Okay? So, welcome to the Art of Influence resource. Introduction. Your environment is the single most underrated force shaping your reality. Everything from the people you surround yourself with to the content you consume, it molds your beliefs, habits, and even your potential for success. This guide will give you a clear step-by-step strategy to redesign your environment so that it propels you towards becoming your desired self rather than holding you back. So, step 1, the influence audit. Before you can take control, you need to identify how your current environment is influencing you. So answer these questions honestly. Who are the 5 people I spend the most time with? How do they make me feel? Do they push me forward or keep me stagnant? What type of content do I consume daily? And be brutally honest with yourself. So TikTok, YouTube, books, podcast, music. What phrases, beliefs, or mindsets have I absorbed from my surroundings? For example, money is hard to make. I'm not naturally confident. Success takes decades. What parts of my environment trigger procrastination or self-sabotage? Cluttered space, toxic friendships, low energy places. Write down your answers, and the goal here is awareness because what you aren't aware of, you can't control. Knowing the problem is solving half of it. And then step 2 is your influence actions. Once you've identified the key influences in your life, it's time to intentionally reprogram them. So first, the people and social influence, the 80-20 rule. So the top 50% should be mentors and role models. Spend time around or consume content from those ahead of you. So replace weak social ties with stronger ones. And then the middle 30% of your time should be spent with peers on your level. So engage in high-value communities like the one in this course and hold each other accountable. And then the bottom 20% are those behind you. Limit exposure to negative influences without guilt. If you can't cut them off completely, minimize their impact, okay? Then we have content and information diet. So reprogram your algorithm. Curate your social media so that every time you scroll, you're inspired. Audit your music, shows, and books. Everything you consume should reinforce your new identity. Physical and environmental influence, designed for discipline. Declutter your space. Your environment reflects your mind. A messy space equals a messy mindset. And also you could set up visual triggers as well. Your deep desire statement background, a whiteboard with your purpose, a picture of your inspiration on your wall. Step 3, the influence hierarchy. Some influences shape you more than others, and here's a priority ranking for reprogramming. So starting with social influences, which is friends, family, and mentor, which is the most powerful. I want you to list them out. Your psychological influence, list them out. Educational influence, so list them out. Media and content influence, list them out. Physical environment influence, list them out. So start at the top. If your social circle is weak, fix it first. If your beliefs are off, work on those before optimizing others, okay? Step 4 is final tips. What if you can't escape bad influences immediately? Here's how to protect yourself. First, mental firewalls. Develop a habit of questioning everything. When someone tells you that's impossible, ask, is this their truth or is it actually true? Neutralization technique. If you can't remove negative people, use them as reverse motivation. Let their doubt fuel your drive. because you are a product of your environment. So make it work for you. Every day you're either being shaped by your surroundings or shaping them to your advantage. Most people stay stuck because they refuse to take control of their influences, but now you have the tools to redesign your environment to pull you towards your dream self. Now your challenge is to take immediate action. Start removing, replacing, and reinforcing your influences today. Your transformations begins right now. And again, this is my example, and use it as a guide, but do not copy my input, okay? For the influence audit, I put myself. My internal dialogue is powerful. I've trained it to be empowering, but I still catch old limiting thoughts now and then. Content creators I follow, they push me forward massively. A few close friends that inspire my core 5. Some family members and online mentors. What type of content do I consume daily? YouTube videos and success, mindset, business, psychology, and spirituality. My own written goals, journal entries and affirmation, music, R&B, indie, and some emotional reflective tracks. Instagram, TikTok created to show only growth, fitness, mindset, inspiring content. So if you ever feel lost and you're kind of like, oh, how do I answer this? Or what is the best way to answer this question? Or how should I format it? Just scroll down and go through them, okay? So that was basically the art of influence, one of the most crucial gears of change. And we basically went over your best friend and your worst enemy, which is influence. And influence, as you know, is an inherently neutral thing. It is how you view it and what you choose to view, which dictates if it's positive or negative. Then we talked about the types of influence. And then finally, we talked about how to switch your bad influences into good influences, and also about becoming non-binary or being like water, like Bruce Lee would say. So all there is to do now is take action, and I'll see you guys in the very next module, which is the last module of the internal course. So I'll see you there.